Good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining us. We are here this evening to discuss the Main Street Recovery Finance Program and to get your comments and feedback on that program as it moves through the rules and regulations process. You're going to hear from a few of us today, and I'm going to go over a few ground rules and helpful hints for as we move through the process. There are communications staff available in the chat. They'll be providing links to where you can find more information. Public comment will only happen through the raise hand. So if we can move to the next slide, we'll get this started. So our introduction, 5 to 10 minutes. We'll do a broad program overview. And at the end of that is when we're going to give you the opportunity for to present your comments. To access the actual draft rules and related definitions document, you can visit njeda.com/program-specific-feedback. So about the Economic Recovery Act, Governor Murphy signed the New Jersey Economic Recovery Act into law on January 7th, 2021. Additional legislation was enacted on July 2nd, improving the programs established under the ERA. The ERA creates a package of tax incentive, financing, and grant programs to build a stronger and fairer economy and is a broad-based recovery and reform bill that will better position New Jersey to recover from the economic crisis caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. The reason we're here tonight is part of the commitment to transparency and accountability, and we're here to talk to you about the programs and then to solicit your feedback as well. You can always see the Economic Recovery Act at njeda.com/Economic Recovery Act. Again, commitment to transparency, equity, and faithful stewardship of taxpayer dollars is very important to us and very important to the state. And we welcome your constructive input as we walk through the process of implementing the programs under the ERA. The NJEDA will be providing multiple opportunities for public input. Today's session is one way that we're collecting informal program-specific feedback. We've also collect general program feedback on the website, and there will be formal regulatory feedback as well. Pursuant to the executive order, this is the night that we've invited you as stakeholders of our programs to hear about the Main Street Recovery Finance Program and provide input. Please make sure that your input is constructive and is based on the specific program. The session will start with a presentation that will summarize the draft rules and then end with the opportunity for feedback. The way that feedback will work is, again, you can submit written feedback on the Main Street program via our website, or at the end of this session, and I think I jumped a couple slides ahead. At the end of the session, we'll provide for public comment. Members of the public will have 3 minutes to speak, and you'll get your place in line by raising your hand. That hand function that's down at the bottom, if you click that, we'll have you listed in order and we'll call on you. When we call on you, we'll acknowledge you by name in the order in which you raised your hand, and we'll open up your microphone in order for you to make the statement. Each speaker only has a maximum of 3 minutes. However, if someone would like to speak again, you can re-raise your hand to get back in line, and if we have time at the end, we'll certainly allow you to do that. Please do not expect to engage in dialogue. This is not the moment to try and figure out if your particular business or organization is eligible. Certainly, we can provide some clarifying comments, and we're very happy to, but this is your opportunity to speak to the program as a whole and tell us your thoughts and provide us your feedback. Please remember to maintain proper decorum throughout the presentation and provide your remarks in a civil manner. And I think we can go to the next one. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to our Chief Community Development Officer, Ty Cooper, who will walk you through the big, broad Main Street Recovery Program
Thanks so much, Patience. I appreciate that and great overview. Really quickly to everybody that's here, thank you for joining us today to share your input on the Main Street Recovery Finance Program. As we begin the long process of recovering from the COVID-19 pandemic, the resources this program makes available to small businesses will be vital to ensuring a strong and equitable recovery. Today's listening session will help us make sure that this program addresses your needs and your concerns in the most effective and efficient way possible. Since he took office, Governor Murphy has been dedicated to building a stronger, fairer New Jersey economy that works for all New Jerseyans. The New Jersey Economic Recovery Act creates a new package of programs designed to keep our state moving towards this goal. In addition to our other programs, the ERA includes tax credits to incentivize job creation, new construction, and revitalization of brownfields and historic properties, financial resources for small businesses, support for new supermarkets and healthy food retailers in food desert communities, new funding opportunities for early stage companies in New Jersey, and support for the growing film and digital media industry. One of the governor's top priorities is supporting small businesses in Main Street communities throughout the state. We have done this throughout the pandemic, and we will continue to do this as we move forward. Throughout the pandemic, the NJEDA has provided hundreds of millions of dollars in relief to more than 75,000 small businesses, and other state agencies have provided additional support to help business owners and their employees navigate the challenges of the pandemic that the pandemic created. This includes NJRA, our partners at DCA, and also HMFA. Now, as we begin to recover from the worst of the pandemic, we are shifting our focus to achieving a stronger, fairer economy. And that starts here with the Main Street Recovery Finance Program. It's a key component of these recovery efforts and will provide $100 million in grants and loans to small and micro businesses. The program will also develop pilot programs that will provide loans to other micro business lenders like CDFIs and minority deposit institutions, increasing their lending capacity to support more New Jersey micro businesses. Christina clearly is going to go into way more detail, but I want to give you a little bit more. In line with Governor Murphy and NJEDA's commitment to transparency and public engagement, we are proud to share the draft rules for the program with you today for your input. You know, as small businesses, what resources you need, and we look forward to hearing your insights on how to ensure the Main Street Recovery Program is effective and fair. Thank you in advance for listening to all this. We're excited about the positive impacts this program is going to have, and we look forward to help incorporating your ideas to make this a better state. Now look forward to turning it over to Christina Fuentes, who is the Managing Director of Community Development. She has done a phenomenal job in putting this program together. So I hope you guys enjoy her presentation today. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ty. Okay, so I'm going to go into the details with the Main Street Recovery Program. It essentially is a $100 million appropriation, as Ty said, which will support directly into a fund that comes from Treasury to allow EDA to create very specific products and grants and loans. So we're going to highlight those grants today and then some eligibility criteria around those. But the grants to small businesses will essentially have to be to New Jersey-based small businesses that are defined by SBA as a small business to support renovations, operating expenses like lease payments, purchase and installation of equipment, and FF&E purchases as well too. But then also to loans to micro businesses, which would be very attractive and low cost financing to really support what we define as a micro business, which is essentially 10 full-time employees or less. And then based on their last tax return, they would have to have 1.5 million in revenue or less as well too. We're also going to provide some resources to other like eligible lenders that serve micro businesses too. And they will get some direct support in the terms of grants and loans. They would have to have a demonstrated experience of 10 years or more servicing micro businesses, but those eligible lenders will essentially be community development financial institutions, otherwise known as CDFIs, our minority depository institutions, zone development corporations in cities with a population of 100,000 or more, community development corporations, and economic development corporations. So this is a nice way for EDA to leverage our partners and service micro businesses. So the rules will essentially encompass 2 grants that we're going to be offering small businesses. One will be a small business lease grant, which is going to support a business that's going into new space or expanding additional space. And then another grant that's going to be the small business improvement grant, which essentially reimburses a business owner who may have made purchases or renovations to install or purchase and, to buy additional equipment as well. And businesses actually would be eligible for both of these grants too. So they could, if they're going into new space and then need to buy additional equipment, they could qualify for both if they fit the criteria. Next slide, please. I'm going to highlight the small business lease grant first. We will be doing a 40% set aside for opportunity zone eligible census tracts. And this grant will basically offer anyone who's signed into a new lease 12 months from the point of application would be eligible for this. The grant would essentially cover 2 grant disbursements. One would be at time of approval, so they can get 20% of their yearly lease payments up front at approval. And then 12 months later, after they demonstrated they paid their lease, they can get another 20% grant to support them. And this is really just to support a business that's going into a new space again, or adding additional space, and to help them kind of cover the additional costs that would be associated to that. You can, as an applicant, apply for multiple locations, but it would be 1 application per location. And the fee associated to it would be a $100 fee. We're not trying to charge an application fee, but an approval fee. So ensuring that you would move towards an approval at that time, then you would pay your fee and then execute your grant agreement with EDA. Next slide. So eligibility around this program, you would have to meet the SBA definition of a small business, and that's determined by your NAICS code. You would have to provide a current tax clearance certificate and be in good standing with the state. That means Department of Labor, Department of Environmental Protection as well too, and then certify you're not in default of any other EDA products or assistance. And then at time of application, you would have to certify that you would be paying minimum wage requirements as well too. So it would be the greater of $15 an hour or 120% of the minimum wage rate. For tipped employees though, you just have to pay the 120% of minimum wage rate. And this would be for the term of the grant, which for this product, it would be a minimum of 5 years because that's a requirement around the lease as well. You would have to be willing to commit to that 5 years and stay in there as well too. And there'd be a compliance period for each year demonstrating you are paying your employees those rates. Next slide. In order to be eligible for this, it has to be at least 500 to 10,000 square. One more. There you go. So it has to be 500 to 10,000 square feet of office or retail space, which essentially encompasses all commercial space. You can have a building that's over 10,000 square feet and still be eligible, but we're only going to incentivize the 10,000 square feet. It would have to be a new lease, an amendment, an extension, something that would incorporate at least 500 of additional square footage added to your space. The biggest thing for this is it's going to be a statewide program. So we're going to make sure, since it is a Main Street program, it would have to incorporate street level space. So you could have potentially a second floor or a basement space as well. You would still be eligible for that, but the street level space has to be incorporated to be eligible. And again, it has to be a minimum of 5-year term lease as well. It also has to be a market rate lease, and we would determine that using CoStar information as well too. And again, at time of application, the lease would have to be executed within 12 months to be eligible. Next slide. Some exclusions around this grant product would be, we would essentially look for an applicant to not terminate their lease or break a lease just to pursue this grant. So you cannot, end this lease just to pursue the same square footage in order to qualify for the grant. You would have to, we do allow entities that, if you received an approval for a small business lease assistance program, you can opt out of that to still pursue this grant, but there's restrictions around the grant would have to be signed after March 9th, 2020, which is when the governor declared the pandemic. And so it would be 12 months still from that point. So you would have to fall into that gap. Grantees that are going to default under lease payments or leave the space during the term of their grants would have to repay anything that they may have received, because again, we would be dispersing payments prior. So anything, if you're going to leave the space, would have to be paid back. We also said with high tech and business incubator members and nonprofit facilities would not be eligible, just because it's typically with sometimes state colleges run their own incubators and offer attractive incentives around that too. But an operator of an incubator would be eligible for this product. Landlords cannot have an ownership interest in the tenant as well. Next slide. So the next grant program would be the Small Business Improvement Grant. Again, we're going to do a 40% set aside for Opportunity Zone eligible census tracts. This grant will be, it's basically reimbursing somebody 50% of their total project costs. The maximum grant award is up to $50,000, and it can go towards interior, exterior renovations, purchase and installation of new furniture, fixtures, and equipment, and the minimum project cost has to be at least $5,000. This would be a limit of 1 grant per EIN. And if there's an entity that has 1 EIN but multiple locations, they can incorporate all those locations into 1 application. Also, if there's an entity that did renovations plus purchase equipment, you want to make sure you do everything in 1 application as well too. Again, there would be a $100 approval fee in order to receive the grant agreement and then execute. Next slide. Eligibility around this product would again have to fit the SBA definition of a small business. They would have to be in commercial space, either own it or rent it or operate the facility themselves, and also have to provide a tax clearance, current tax clearance certificate, and demonstrating they're in good standing with the state through Department of Labor, Department of Environmental Protection as well, and certifying that they're in good standing with EDA. This product also would have to certify that at time of application, they'd be willing to pay the minimum wage requirements. And for some reason, I can't see that bottom bullet point. But anyway, it's the greater of $15, and there we go. Thank you. Nonprofits and commercial businesses are eligible for the program too. Just to highlight again, the minimum wage requirements would be similar to the other program where you would have the greater of $15 an hour or 100% or 120% of minimum wage. And if they're tipped employees, it's just the 120% of minimum wage. So at application, they don't have to do that, but they have to certify going forward for their compliance period, they're willing to do that. Project eligibility for the improvement grant would be, again, reimbursing interior, exterior building improvements and fitting into the criteria of FF&E as well. Home-based businesses would be eligible, but only for FF&E. We can't support any type of renovations to homes as well. So the work would have to be completed on or after March 9th, 2020, but no more than 2 years prior to the application date. And they would have to demonstrate documentation of payment that the work was actually completed. So this can be done through invoices, statements, payments, or canceled checks. The total cost cannot be, it has to be at least $5,000. And then the applicant would be responsible for their own local approvals. So if there's a requirement around zoning or permitting, that would be up to the applicant to pursue. And projects that are over 50,000 would be subjected to green building standards for lighting and mechanical work. So any type of interior, exterior lighting, just making sure you're choosing the right light bulbs. And then for any type of HVAC systems, you want to make sure that you would be incorporating, you know, efficiency units. And if you're doing a project this size, it is a definite benefit to the business owner. If the applicant is leasing space, they essentially would have to just get permission to make those improvements as well too, if it's not identified in their lease. And any, if you're utilizing, you know, a contractor that has 4 or more employees, there will be affirmative action requirements, and it's essentially just a form the contractor would have to fill out and provide to us as part of the application. Next slide. So the essential requirements around these 2 grants and additional products that may be created. If there's any type of grant, it has to have the wage requirements that have been identified. So it would have to be employees would be paid the greater of $15 an hour or 120% of minimum wage, except if it's a tipped employee, it's just the 120% of minimum wage. EDA would monitor this annually and collect the necessary information to prove that. And then also the green building standards would be applicable as well. So as I highlighted in the improvement grant, for any project over 50,000 would have to demonstrate that they adhere to these building standards through a form that we would have in part of the application process as well. Very similar to the affirmative action. And then also with the lease grant, you would have to commit to the facility for at least 5 years and staying in compliance with that. For the small business improvement grant, for any grants less than 25,000, you would have to commit to remaining in the facility, and then also the wage requirements for at least 2 years. If your grant is over 25,000, you would have to remain into the facility and the wage requirements for at least 4 years. And this would be all identified in the grant agreement as well. Next slide. We will also have the ability to do some future pilot programs as well too. So we have a micro business loan program that we could look to offer some attractive capital out there up to 50,000, provide loans to micro businesses. The wage requirements would not be applicable because these are lending products, but would still have to be in good standing with the state. But we have very attractive products to be able to offer. So if you don't fit into the grant per se, there's potential to have access to capital through these programs as well too. We would also look to leverage our micro business lenders as highlighted before. And so we would look to provide them resources and provide potential grant and access to capital as well. So then we can look to them to lend out to our micro businesses to support them throughout the state too. Some technical assistance that they could potentially provide is really around providing it to the micro business in order to access the capital. So if they need credit repair services or help with a business plan or doing projections or financial statements, they could offer those through these products as well too. And I think that's it. So I'll kick it back over to Patience.
Thanks, Christina. That was great. So we're going to move into the public comment portion of our program. And so just a few reminders. If you do want to go online and find out some more information and spend some more time looking at this, these slides as well as in-depth information is available on the NJEDA website. To provide written feedback on the Main Street program, you can go to njeda.com/program-specific-feedback. And you can find all of the programs within the Economic Recovery Act on our website as well. As far as public comment, we're going to start with those who have their hands raised. I'll call on you. We will unmute your mic and then you'll have the opportunity to provide your feedback. Andrew Parker, we're going to start with you. You should be unmuted and ready to go. Andrew, you may have to click unmute on your own as well, once we've given you that authority.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
We can, thank you.
All right, thank you. I'm gonna be honest, I hit the button by mistake, so I'm gonna make up a question here since I have the microphone. Now, I know that part of the program, as I was listening, is to make sure that there's accountability on how the monies are dispersed and who's receiving the monies. And I was just, wondering if we can go into a little bit more detail into how that's going to work in terms of from the state, bringing it down to the county economic development, down to the local economic development commissions in our municipalities, to be able to help the businesses in our area.
Okay, so it's Christina. There's going to be a whole separate part of this. This is really just going over the regs and the rules about the products, and then EDA will be offering, sessions to be able to teach people the application part of this. So we definitely would look to our partners to be able to help educate them about how to access these programs and then what the actual application process would essentially be. That's to come though. I have to essentially do the regs, get them board approved, create the products, and then we move forward with that.
Gotcha, covered. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Christina, there's a question in the chat that I think is worth addressing here, and I think it's a good one. The set aside for businesses located in designated opportunity zones, is that specific to the opportunity zones, or is it for the census tracts that were eligible to be designated as opportunity zones?
It's the eligible census tracts, which is the larger number.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I lost my participant list. Give me just a second.
While you're looking at that, patient, somebody also asked, this is Ty, if the slides will be available in Spanish as well. That's an easy one just to answer while we're waiting for your participant list. So the answer for that will be yes.
So the next person whose hand is raised is Anna Perry. Anna, you should be able to unmute your mic and provide your comment.
Yes, so can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I have a question. You mentioned there will be training on how to apply and to fill out the application. How will you find information about that, and when this going to take place and time? Where?
So we still have to get this approved by our board, the actual programs, and then from that point forward. So I don't really want to put a time on when this would actually be out there, but I'm guessing like late fall maybe. But just like we announced this and we push it out to the public, you would definitely know, and we would provide the resources to you as well too.
Okay, thank you. And one more thing, what, for example, if I'm sole proprietor, am I eligible?
Yes, yeah, there's no restriction. There's certain business type restrictions, but sole props are not. Like, I mean, we have certain restrictions around nonprofits, but for the most part, pretty much everyone would be eligible for this. It's just lobbying and church restrictions typically. So, but sole props would not be disqualified.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And as you mentioned, we will get the information about late in autumn. It will be by email through the main email. I mean, how the information will be distributed to us.
So I always recommend to people to go to njeda.com and you scroll to the bottom and you can sign up for our newsletters where all of our information that goes when it's approved at board is essentially put out to the public from that point. So if you haven't done that yet, I would highly recommend you do that because it's a good tool. And then we would also have designated information on our direct website at njeda.com as well about these products and programs and how to pursue them.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Christina. So just for anyone that is there and not feeling like raising their hand and asking a question, please keep in mind that you can present your feedback online at njeda.com/program-specific-feedback, and as well on the ERA. Looking up more information on the Economic Recovery Act as a whole is available at njeda.com/Economic Recovery Act. We will be doing other sessions and listening sessions, so tell your friends. Our next session is tomorrow at, don't have it right in front of me.
2 o'clock.
Going to in a second. Tomorrow at 2 o'clock, and then we'll have another one on Thursday at
10
a.m. Thank you.
Yeah.
I had those up in front of me. I apologize. So tell your friends, tell your neighbors, join us on one of those if you couldn't join us today, or if you could join us today and you're looking to get some more information. We welcome you back, and everybody have a really nice evening. Thanks for coming and listening.
Thank you.